Welcome to Imperfect Love with Dr. Carla Marie Manley, psychologist, author, and relationship expert. I'm here to help unravel mysteries and misconceptions about love, relationships, and mental health issues, plus everything in between. Love is complicated, people are not perfect, and relationships surely can be tough. Together, we'll navigate this messy, imperfect space of real life.
Do you believe in miracles? Does the idea of manifestation seem real and within your reach? Or does it sound more like an impossibility? From my experience and that of countless others, you can learn to manifest, to foster your potential and abundance by tuning into your personal idea of prosperity. Of course, the process of manifestation doesn't mean that all your dreams will instantly come true, but it does help you lean into and draw toward you your best life. Join me and manifestation and results coach Scott Haug as we explore how you can create your own prosperity magnet. Today, we'll focus on this listener's real-life question. Maybe I'm just a realist or a pessimist, but I can't get into or believe all this stuff about manifestation. I've read a lot about this, including an article that mentioned you, and can't find any scientific proof about manifestation actually working. Do you have any convincing evidence that manifestation is real? And with that question as the focus of today's episode, I'm Dr. Carla Marie Manley, and this is Imperfect Love. Please note, as this episode may contain sensitive information, listener discretion is advised. If you need support, please see the special links in the show notes. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, Scott Haug, who will be sharing his expertise on manifestation, prosperity, and getting the results you want in life. Welcome to the podcast, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing really well, Dr. Carla. Thanks so much for having me on. This will be great.
It's a pleasure to have you. And manifestation is a topic that's become increasingly common. And it seems like there are two groups. The group that says, yes, let's manifest, let's lean into manifestation. And then the other segment, of course, there's always in the middle, the people who are like, not sure. But then there's a segment who's diametrically opposed to even the idea of being able to manifest anything. Life is what it is, and it's going to take us in a certain direction, and you can't really do anything about it kind of thought.
Sure.
Except for being a person who works really hard, and perhaps that's a way to manifest. But the idea of doing it in sort of an airy-fairy way doesn't seem to resonate with some people. What do you think about that?
I started out not believing at all of any of this. And funny enough, there was a series of, you call them coincidences or synchronicities that really led me to start the journey of believing. And one thing that really helped me out one day was that I heard somebody talk about a cell phone. And we all take them for granted now, right? They're wireless devices. You don't see the Wi-Fi. You don't get to see how things really, it just works, right? We kind of take it for granted. And the speaker was saying 30 years ago, people would have thought this phone was ridiculous. It was abnormal. There's no way that you could have a video conference with somebody from here to Europe. And I'm in New York, right? That just sounds ridiculous. But he said, that's what's happening nowadays. And we can certainly jump into some of that science, but that's what started to be a light bulb moment for me that said, if phones are something that does exist invisibly, what if there was a chance that the mind was also operating invisibly? So that was like a light bulb moment. That's what started to draw me into like, let me explore a bit with this.
So you set us up perfectly for one of my favorite questions. Before we really get even more into this topic, could you tell our listeners, and it seems you did already a bit, but what makes you, you?
Well, I would say that what makes me is genuine, authentic, and growth driven. where I stemmed from was actually a very humble beginnings. Most of us being promised with the go to college, get a great job, raise a family, retire, and you're going to be a happy life, right? And I went that route for engineering for 4 years in university, was an aeronautical and mechanical engineer. So a lot of schooling, a lot of stuff going on.
Okay, that's a different stratosphere. All right,
Yeah.
aeronautical and mechanical engineering.
Yeah.
That's not my forte, so keep going. Please tell me more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, basically, the schooling brought me to a place where I was good at math and science. So, I said that's going to be maybe my way of life. That's where I might go from here. Right. So, being in that atmosphere, it was a place where I wanted to use my zone of genius, but I knew it wasn't for me. I knew there was some sort of thing that was off when I got an actual career going. So, just to kind of like summarize a little bit, I jumped over to entrepreneurship after quite a bit of time trying some things out, and it led me to the coaching career that I have today.
I love that and love that you made a shift that felt like it was really right for you. Was that a hard shift to make or was it fairly easy?
It was very difficult because my heart felt the career was not where I was meant to be. But logically, everyone talks about you're throwing your career away. You just spent $100,000 in student loans, right? So logically, it doesn't make much sense, right? Just keep trying, keep going. So it was quite daunting and it was quite scary because you don't know what's on the other side of a big leap and movement like that.
You just gave me shivers. Was your family supportive?
So I've had very supportive parents, especially my father has always helped us, me and my brother and my sister, my siblings, that to be motivated, to be positive, try and find a better way of life, set goals, etc. However, I think in the back of their mind, it every time was like, are you sure this is a good route? Is this really what you want to be going towards? Some of my extended family especially was like, I don't know. Sounds a little crazy to me. So it was supportive, but there's some unspoken things, I'm sure.
Thank you. And I think the reason I got a little bit of chills and shivers when you were talking, it's that what you're talking about is a lesson I learned the hard way and one that I help many of my clients face. That journey of um, living a life that looks good on paper. It's what people have expected of you, what you expected of yourself, and you trot along and you're doing it. It doesn't feel good. And I remember when that happened, not that some people already are on a path that they love and enjoy, but for so many people, and I thought I was one of the only ones, you find that you're doing everything right, but it's right for everyone else. You're supporting everyone else. And then one day you wake up and say, don't want to do this anymore, can't do this anymore, refuse to do it anymore, whatever it is. And that day is a big day when that light bulb goes on.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's a series of days. And then having the courage to take those steps forward. And listeners, this is my personal definition of manifestation. When you start listening to the signs inside of you, no matter how scary it is. And again, this is now the work I do with my clients. It's the work that my dissertation, a quantitative and qualitative analysis of fear and how fear holds us back, became my first book, Joy from Fear, because there is that time. It's exactly what you're talking about. And so I'm smiling a bit as I think about the listener's question, who's basically saying, this, show me evidence. And maybe I don't have, and I will ask you in a bit, but maybe I don't have research papers that say, okay, here's a control group, and this shows that the people who were using manifestation were able to go forward in their lives in this quantifiable way. But I can say qualitatively, I have, and experientially, I have seen, and I have experienced, and you have experienced that idea of finally slowing down, tuning into what you really want, which is what you do. You help people tune into what they want and then take the steps forward by visualizing. And I'm just setting it up for what you do, and then I'm going to hand this back to you. And then you have to do the sometimes scary work to make those dreams come true. It's not about waving a magic wand. I sometimes wish I could wave a magic wand for me or for my clients, but then it would be too easy. I think part of the process is really digging in and watching the magic unfold because you're leaning into it, not because it just falls on your doorstep kind of thing. Anyway, what do you think of all of that?
I love what you're saying. I so deeply agree with all this, that you have to find your truth. And that's really hard in a world that is so science physical based, that really doesn't believe in a lot of things that are in more of the invisible, right? And I think when somebody doesn't believe in manifestation, and I always tell them, first and foremost, good, thank you. Thank you for being more skeptical than just blindly believing something, because that's also not a good way either, right? That's off balance. Just, hey, I'll just believe it because it sounds good, right? And, like you were saying here, and having more, finding the joy over your fear, finding where your heart is. Where's your love center? What are you wanting for your life? And not blocking yourself from that. And I think too many of us are, and many times, just blocking ourselves from our joy, our happiness, and maybe where we want to take life overall.
I agree with you. And I think for most people, when they feel blocked or stuck, and again, I do this work in my clinical practice daily, they can feel it. Their body is telling them, their soul is telling them. Sometimes their mind is trying to override it, but there's a part where they're saying, whether they're accepting less in a job, in a relationship, in a family environment, in their life as a whole, there is a messenger inside that's saying, no, please do something differently. Please, let's use the word manifest. Please manifest the life you were meant to live. And I think when we slow down and listen to that, yes, it is scary because we are comfortably uncomfortable in that. I'm sure your life as an engineer would have gone on okay.
Yeah.
It have been very lucrative financially, but you might have suffered quite a lot in the really important realms, such as happiness, joy, and satisfaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when at that moment when I had changed careers, it was a feeling like there was a lot of chaos going on inside, and that uncomfortable moment and that nervousness. And like we all have those logical reasons, right? And for other people at that time, if they're transitioning, it might be, well, I have to put food on the table. I have to pay my bills. I have to bring the kids to college. I have to do these things, right? So there's like this two-part battle that you find in the body and the mind a lot, is the logical side, and then you have your more feeling side, right? And I think that if we can learn to balance both the mind side with the emotional side, then you get the best of both worlds. Yes, some logic will be there, but also when your heart's there, that's when you can really clarify what it is, what is my calling, and what am I trying to do here in this path. And first thing though is make sure you don't limit yourself, right? Make sure you don't limit those thoughts of those logical reasons coming in first.
It's interesting that you say that, because in another podcast episode, I was working with someone who was talking about the importance of watching how children are, how they're in that very right brain creative space. Prefrontal cortex, not happening there.
Yeah.
And then his premise was, and I absolutely a believer in this, the premise is, be in that right creative space. Allow that joy, that curiosity, that imagination to be there. Pop into the left brain, get some reality check, and then go back and be in with the right brain again, because that creative space, there's a lot of power and energy and beauty there. And so what do you think of that? Right brain to left brain, and then back into right?
Yeah, I think it's a practice, and it comes down to being a good skill for everyone to follow and really create and get better at. So one thing that's really helped a lot of my clients, as well as me, to like integrate this is that if you can go with your logical side and maybe write all your logical reasoning down for some project you're working through or some dream you have, right? And get all that nonsense out of the mind. So the monkey mind saying all these things, get that out of your head and put it on paper. And then go and take a sheet of paper and maybe draw or visualize or find an image that resonates with that goal or that project outcome or whatever you're wanting. And what it does is really allows you to clarify maybe some illogical things, but you mix in that creativity with that logic by doing both exercises. When that's complete, now you feel a little bit more of a release. You feel, I have clarity of vision. I've used my creative side, but I also have a logical outcome. I know where I'm going. I have that focus. And for each person, it's very feminine, masculine, energy oriented as well. And so if you're more masculine driven, you might be very ambitious, very focused, etc. And if you're more feminine driven, you might be a little bit more spontaneous, present in the moment, etc. Right? But we all have both energies, regardless of our gender. And it's like the same thing with the left and right side. So if you can learn to balance, it becomes a way of life. And therefore, it's hard to get there from day one, but it's a practice if you're doing it each day or once a week or some sort of practice ongoing.
Thank you for bringing up the part of the masculine and feminine energy. And listeners who have popped into my podcast before, they've heard me talk about it because I'm Jungian trained. And Carl Jung is the one who gave us the idea of the masculine energy and the feminine energy.
Yeah.
That indeed we do have both, and we want to nourish both and breathe into them because it's the yin and the yang, another way of saying that. And in my first book, I talked about that and renamed them to be more politically correct so people could find them more digestible. Masculine became power energy. Feminine became nurture energy, which is that yummy, creative, beautiful, imaginal side. And then when we look at that and how wonderful that is, we can do all the imagining and loving and nurturing in the world. And it is really complemented by that power side, the intention, the perseverance, the moving through. And so when we see those two working together, when we bring those together, that is how manifestation comes to life.
Yeah.
Because we need that power, that drive. And when we have too much of that and we lose the nurture, the imagination, the gentleness, the cultivation, it's what happens to our society sometimes in the worst of ways. It's just driven by greed and power and I want. And we bring in that beautiful nurturing energy, creative, imaginal, gentle. My goodness, we create and draw forward, but the product is lovely and considerate and doesn't steamroll other people or the environment. So anyway, I love how you brought that up because it is an important piece, which I think speaks to the question of the day. If we just sit on our couch or on the back porch and say, oh, I want to manifest, a check for $5 million coming in the mail, and we just see that check, but don't take any action, it's not likely that a check for $5 million is going to show up in the mail. We need to be doing something to generate that movement toward that. It might be entering your names in sweepstakes a lot. It might be getting a job that'll get you up to that level, or becoming, self-employed, or a coach, or whatever it might be. But I do believe, and it sounds like you're completely in accord, that we need both the masculine power and the feminine nurture creative.
Yeah. I think you touch upon a great point here with how it integrates with manifestation, because a lot of people have heard the ask, believe, receive formula, right? Simple. It's easy to remember. Well, when it comes down to it, you take a look at the energies of each of these, right? And a lot of people, especially if they listen into like The Secret or something like that, right? They ask, like you're saying, like, I want a $5 million check. And they thought that manifesting was, if I can visualize it one time, it's going to happen. Like kind of you talked about a fairy dust wand, or, something just poofs out of thin air. But really, the second part of the process, I believe, is the most important, because we can all ask. It's easy to ask, but is it easy to believe? And that's really where a lot of the masculine and feminine energies combine together, because when you're believing, we have to feel as if we already have what we're wanting to manifest or attract into our lives. So if I think about the $5 million check in the mail, but I don't believe it at a subconscious level, I could say out loud, I believe it, but at a subconscious level, do I feel in possession of it? Does it feel familiar? Is it natural for me to receive that $5 million check? And if it's not, the third part of it, we're not going to be receiving, we'll receive the absence. And that's where people get a little confused on that. So being able to be in the feminine visualization part, and then like you also mentioned, the masculine action side, opening up what I call channels to my clients, open up the channels to receive the supply you're intending, I think is really great. So it's a great point on both the energies and how it involves the process.
And it's interesting. I like the format of ask, believe, receive, yet I personally have always added in one before the receive. So that
Mm.
mine is a 4-step: ask, believe, engage, receive.
Mm.
And that engagement to me is a really key piece, because the engagement is, use my life, for example. If I sat down and said, I want to write a book, right? I can ask for it, I can believe it, and I can receive it. I've got to sit down
Yeah.
in there, and we want to see that engagement process, and that's just my way of coining the process, that we have to engage with it. We really do, because that book is not going to get written if
Yeah.
I don't devote hours upon hours and hours of my time, energy, and love into creating it. And I think that might be, I don't know, what the listener is getting at with their question, except that might be a part of looking at the equation that might feel better if they see it not just as that 3-part process that does seem very simplistic, and
Yeah.
see it as a 4-part process. But let me ask you for a moment, are
Mhm.
you aware of any quantitative evidence that manifestation works?
Mhm.
And listeners, this is a funny part, because I don't particularly care if there's quantitative evidence or not. Reason being, so much of the quantitative evidence that we're fed, whether it's results of pharmaceutical studies or food studies or alcohol studies, that it's funded by people who want it to come out a certain way.
Yeah.
So if I wanted to fund a study on manifestation, I could get it to come out however I wanted to, and that's how it would be. And even really good researchers tend to have a bias. So we always want to be careful about putting too much emphasis on these research studies, because some of them are really top notch, and some of them are mediocre, and some are very poor. But before you answer the question, I do want to say one other thing. I think that we can all find a time in our lives where we have negatively manifested something, or manifested something negative, put it that way, or seen someone manifest something in a negative way. And here's one that I see a lot in couples work, where someone will be saying, I know that my partner's going to be upset when I tell them this.
Oh, sure.
And but I'm going to tell them anyway, and I know a big fight's going to ensue. So they're prepared, they're already in fight flight mode. Then when the person comes home or has the conversation, they're already in a mode where they are going to unconsciously, generally, have that conversation go down this, snowball, to this terrible snowball effect where it just becomes worse and worse. And so they have manifested, again, consciously or unconsciously, that a big blow up's going to happen, because they didn't prepare for a positive outcome by saying, I'm going to sit here, I know I have this, and I'm going to really work on verbiage and being non-reactive and containing things so that I have a positive outcome. Might be tough, might be anxiety inducing, but I'm going to do everything within my power to see that's a positive, connective outcome. So I think that might resonate with many listeners, that we do have the power to manifest things in our interpersonal worlds. And I hope that makes sense, listeners. Okay, Scott, I did have to say that because it's an example of manifesting something negative.
Yeah, absolutely. You're spot on. It's so easy to look for what have I manifested that I'm not liking when we're in that place of trying to figure this whole thing out. In terms of the data and surveys, I actually made a decision not to actually explore a lot of those for the reasons you had suggested there, because I was really big into fitness and things from my whole childhood and upbringing because my parents own a fitness gym. And there was a lot of studies that I would read up on, from nutrition to the way you work out or the way you build a muscle. And I had found that a lot of the studies I would do essentially the opposite, and things would be better for me, because I think it's really person to person is so important. And what I decided on instead was, let me personally experiment myself with manifestation. Let me be the survey. Let me test it out. And then I would have my clients do the same thing. And here's what I would do. I learned that manifestation doesn't just mean the material things. It's also level one is your thoughts. Easiest experiment out there. So let's try this. So anybody listening in, I want you to think about the front door of your house. Think about it. What color is the door? Does the door open on the left side or the right side? Is there a doorknob, or is it like a door handle? Is there a window? No window. Okay. Now I want you to stop thinking about your front door. Stop thinking about the front door. Don't think about the color of the front door. Don't think about the door on the left or the right. Don't think about it. Almost everybody, what's happening? You're thinking about it even more, right? So the first level of manifestation is that we attract like thoughts, what come in images in the mind. And that was a big light bulb second moment for me, because I saw, if I do think a more positive thought, like you said so well, Dr. Carla, like just more optimistic thought, like, what if I prepare myself in the best way for not getting into an argument with my spouse or partner, right? What can I do here to reverse this? Automatically, you start thinking thoughts on that path. If I want more abundance in my life, what if I thought, how can I be in a place of better abundance, rather than I can't pay the bill, money's so frustrating, it's never happening for me. So all automatically the experiment fits. Every time I think a thought like this, it follows more. So I'm manifesting thoughts all the time. And I'll just go one more step here. The second level is feeling. So if you think a thought long enough, it induces a lot of feeling. So if I'm thinking about abundance, you start to feel a little bit more hopeful. If I'm thinking about how terrible my bills are and I can never get things moving financially, I start to feel maybe more frustrated. Second experiment already completed, that you can manifest thoughts and feelings. Maybe not things yet, if you want to believe that, but we just proved that thoughts and feelings are being manifested from your mindset, from your state. And it was a huge starting point for me, experimenting and being my own survey.
I really agree with you. It is so important for us just to pause here, because that's a critical piece. We forget the power of that connection between our emotions, our thoughts. The thoughts then create a mindset, they create energy, and then we have these actions, and we don't think we're manifesting something. We don't think of it that way, but we are. If I'm excited about a project and I'm like, yeah, this is wonderful. I want to, let's say I'm a college student, I want to get an A on that. And I dive into it with, excitement and delight, and I'm working on it. It's likely going to have a pretty great outcome. I might not get an A plus, I might get an A or an A minus or a B, but still it's going to be like this amazing process. And if I instead say, I don't want to do this, I don't like it, I'm feeling hopeless about it, I detest this kind of class, and well, likely the project, what I manifest, is going to be something subpar, not
Yeah.
exciting for me, not exciting for my cohort, and something that the professor is likely going to say, this. So we see manifestation when we look at it in the way you're presenting it. You're simply asking us to slow down and pay attention to how our thoughts, the thoughts we create, are causing a certain outcome. And
Yes.
harness that in ways that can work for us rather than keeping us neutral or working against us. Did I get that
Yes.
right?
I think you said it so well. And that state influences, as you're talking about, your actions and habits and also the outcome. And we could do another experiment of if I wanted to pick up a loaf of bread tomorrow, we'll say, and that's something that's been on my mind. We're out of bread. The kids need some toast in the morning. I don't know, something interesting like that, right? Well, automatically, I set an intention. I believe that I could get the loaf of bread because that's maybe normal in my life, right? And then I might take a course of action to go to the store and plan I'm going to go tomorrow at 3 p.m., right? So automatically, my thought created a feeling of certainty that I already know I don't even have to feel if I can do this or not, which created an action state for me to go get the thing. So, what if that was no different than money? And if you did want to manifest maybe something a little bit smaller, more believable, $500 somewhere, somehow. Well, if I set the intention and I can start to let me acknowledge, maybe I can believe in it. Maybe I can. What if it was possible? Changing the thought process, changing your feelings. And then you might want to even take an action. Well, one day I saw that Facebook ad on that business to start. Or, I'm really feeling passionate like I would like to. I'm really good at playing guitar. I want to teach others. So now you're in motion and little serendipitous things have happened to all of us. And when you get into the flow of life, that's when some of those unexpected things happen. And my clients will have these things happen. It's not always a check in the mail, but it can be sometimes. And sometimes it's just, hey, this person really actually reached out to me out of nowhere. They really wanted music lessons. They saw me playing a guitar on a Facebook post I did. And they reached out and said, like, do you coach people? I've had so many clients, so many instances of that happening because you're in the flow of life. And that's when things can start to happen. So you get into that mode. I think anything becomes available, whether it's huge or whether it's small, just according to all that.
I absolutely agree. And like I said, from personal experience, me personally, also clinical work, once somebody starts to believe in themselves and their journey and where they're going, all manner of little miracles, and I do believe in miracles. I remember when I was getting my doctorate, and it was an expensive program and a long road. And I remember saying to myself when it was time to start my internship, like, I can't do a free internship. And then I got a paid internship. I didn't think I would get the one I got, and I was a little circumspect. And then I'm on my way and I'm leaving another job and thinking, gosh, it would be so nice if I just had more than this particular rate I was getting. Lo and behold, program gets taken over by another company, and they offered me, I think it was triple of what I was making.
Wow.
I didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
But I had put it into, without even realizing it. I mean, I was working hard. I was doing all the right things. But I know in my head, it would be so much nicer if things weren't quite so tight. It's really tight. And I see that happen with my clients, as you do, all the time. So we have this real life experiential proof for our listener that this works. Call it serendipity, call it magic, call it miracles, call it manifestation. When we go down that road of believing in ourselves and our journey, I agree with you. Manifestation happens.
Yeah. And it's part of the magic of life of surrendering to the present moment and stepping into that. And I think that a lot of our society is very mind driven. And the mind is a tool. But if we can come back to our presence and sometimes saying yes a little bit more, and like you did, set more intentions, bigger intentions. What do I want? And let's just set it out there in motion. I think that's when life becomes a little bit more joyous because you're saying a little bit more of yes to life. You're opening the ways for things to find you overall instead of blocking them.
Yes, and I love how you're talking about intentions, because I remember working with someone who was wanting to, the fear-based part was just stay in this path. It's where my college education is. It's what my parents wanted. It's what my partner wants. I'm able to pay the bills. And this other part was coming in that's saying, you're meant for more. You're meant for something different. You're meant for this. This is it. And they had come to me in this state of despair and anxiety and stress. And the minute they unblocked themselves and said, wait a minute, path is calling to me for a reason, that shift happened. And this opportunity came, and that opportunity in a way that took time, but it was, and I've seen it happen with people who left really troublesome relationships where they had worked and worked and worked the relationships, finally had the courage to leave, because it can take a lot of courage. There are often
Yeah.
family limitations or concerns. There's often financial issues that come up. And yet, 100% of the time, I really have to say it's been 100% of the time, I have seen things work out. Maybe not always in the short term. There is, a period, often of really intense adjustment and fear. But once there is that movement into believing that a good life is possible, that a great life is possible, that a joy-filled life is possible, it starts happening. And I have to say, I have a question for you, because from my perspective, that doesn't mean that life becomes free of troubles, that from
Yes.
that point forward, you don't encounter any trouble. I see that troubles still occur, challenges still occur. It's just we're coming from a place of more joy and resilience and belief and meaning, so that the hurdles, okay, they're there, but let's hop over them or walk around them, whatever we need to do. What do you think about that component?
I think this point you're saying here is crucial and so significant because it's a cliche thing with the law of attraction or personal development that it's almost like a make-believe outcome that you're going to get to a place where things are just so grand all the time. But I think when we dial it back and we say, what is life? To me, life is a built upon many lessons that you're going to be here for and learning lessons while being in this place of having fun or having joy and navigating things, right? So I think that every challenge will still be there because it holds opportunity. We live in that duality, left to right, up, down, right? So without the challenges, we wouldn't have the opportunity to grow. And from my perspective, at least my belief is that we're here in this life to see, who do I become? That's the thing. It's not how many possessions can I have. Those are fine, but it's at the end of the life. It's who did I become in this lifetime in each area of my life. So when we think of it like that, what we're doing here in manifesting is we're increasing the probability that we're going to attract more desirable outcomes and results to be able to live a more peaceful life within as we do our internal healing and growth, while taking each challenge as an opportunity and growing even more rapid. And that standpoint encompasses personal development, that challenges will still be there because it's making us grow. That's what we're here to do, and allowing ourselves to get to the next evolution, if you will, of who we are. So that's my take on it, at least.
That's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I agree wholeheartedly. And I appreciate very much how you differentiate, because many people believe that being on the planet is about how pretty can you look, how handsome can you be, how much success can you have, what car can you drive, what displays of wealth. And not that we don't want things. We're human. We want things. We need things. But you and I are in agreement. certainly on many things, including the idea that self-growth is what we're here for.
Yeah.
Evolving, using the hiccups that come our way, the learning opportunities to become more fully the human being that we have the potential to be. And it's a lot of work.
Yes.
It takes a great deal of effort, yet I often liken it to a garden, right? Where gardens take work. They're not happening by themselves. They need weeded, they need tended. And sometimes we're excited to go out and tend to them. And other times it's like, oh goodness, I don't want
Right.
to get dirty or whatever it is. But the results, this abundance, this beauty, this nourishment from our gardens is the result of our work. And I see in the way that you're talking, and I had watched one of your YouTube videos before our podcast earlier, and I really liked how you are able to walk people through this 5-minute process. And it sounds like, oh, it's so easy, 5 minutes. But you're not saying 5 minutes, one and done. You're
Yeah.
saying what?
5 minutes consistently and systematically, as I would call it. And if you, that word consistency, I think is everything, because it only does take 5 minutes to start changing your momentum and maybe setting some seeds out there for things you're intending. But just to allude to more examples, it's like going to the gym and going one time and saying, how come I don't have big muscles? Or how come I didn't release 50 pounds yet? Right. Or I'm going to learn Spanish. And I took a lesson, maybe it was an hour class. And then I go to a Spanish speaking country and I don't know what they're saying. And I don't know how to speak it besides hola. Right. So there's many examples that it takes dedication and it takes a practice. And there was one data point that really changed me forever was to learn a new language, to become fluent in it. On average, it takes 1,200 hours. That's a lot of hours. When you break it down in a year, 52 weeks a year, it's like 23 hours a week in order to become fluent. Now, that's just data. Some people get it sooner. It's just an example though. So when it comes down to our goals, ambitions, our intentions, the 5-minute exercise I do, how many times are we actually doing that in the week? I like to do it at least 3 times a day. And I partner up with meals sometimes. I do it breakfast, lunch, dinner. So it's easy to remember. 15 minutes a day. But can we do that for 10 days straight? Can we do that for maybe a month? And you don't have to be perfect at it, but can I get at least 90% of it? Because the consistency is what creates the practice of being a great manifester or a great in anything. It's really comparable to those examples of let me put some effort and intention into it, but it's got to be for a long term, not just today.
Absolutely, because our lives are long term.
Yes.
And it's so interesting in our quick fix society, we tend to think it's one and done.
Yeah.
But most things in life are not one and done. The really important things, whether it's a healthy relationship or manifesting the love of your dreams, that doesn't happen because you sit and you say, oh, genie, come out of a bottle and bring me love. It means that you're working on the relationship. You do your self work to make yourself ready for this love. And then you are more aware of what you want and the kind of person you want to be with. And is that manifesting? Of course it is.
Yeah.
Because you're doing the work. You are doing the steps of ask, believe, and then really doing the engagement, and then you receive it. And after you receive, as with anything, you have to keep working it.
Yeah.
When we think if we want to manifest a car and we do all of this work and we do all the steps, we still have to put gas in it, and we have to change the oil or plug it in, whatever kind of car it is. But we still have to maintain things. And that's why I love when you're talking about do this at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or 3 times a day, whatever that is for you, because that flow that you talk about is a reminder that whatever is important to us, our physical health, the health of our relationships, the spiritual, physical, whatever type of abundance we want, we need to work at it.
Yeah. A funny example I always talk to my clients about is what happens if you stop brushing your teeth? Well, you didn't maintain your teeth anymore. And then I go up to them, well, I'm not going to see you in person because I don't want to be around your breath, right? So it's a funny example, but maintenance is a big part of life, as you're mentioning, taking a shower and brushing our teeth and eating and, drinking water and things. And the more that we can be in a space to embrace consistency and maintenance, it actually turns into fun. You can brush your teeth or it can be neutral, like that's normal. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's fine. Right. And the same thing comes when you're doing your manifestation routines or mindset. It can be more of a fun way of aligning myself with a higher level of prosperity and goodness. And it can be fun as you start to change the attitude on it. So.
Again, I agree with you, because when I talk about self-development, self-growth, self-work being fun, people, sometimes clients, like, what are you talking about? This is painful.
Yeah.
But once you start getting into the groove of it and you don't expect it to end, just like brushing your teeth or, cooking good food, when you don't expect it to end and you see it as a privilege to take care of this beautiful being that you have been given, it's like, well, of course I want to take care of it. Of course I want to make it prosper, body, mind, and spirit, this being prosper. I agree with you. When you have that mindset and that energy of finding it delightful, fun, a privilege, then doing 5 minutes of manifestation 3 times a day is actually a joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's that curiosity of life, that little bit of zest of finding answers, more childlike. Why is the sky blue? Or why does this happen? Or why does this happen? And bringing that curiosity and that jazz to these exercises. Let's experiment. Let's see what the mind can do. Let's see what I can manifest. Let's see what I can bring more peace into my life. What can I heal next? And there will be times when it is very challenging. Going back to the gym example, you lift bigger weights as you go for a reason, because you get stronger and then you need to test yourself, get uncomfortable, or maybe you do 5 minutes on the treadmill, but tomorrow you do 6, right? We test ourselves to strengthen. So the same thing goes with sometimes some healing. Oh, there might be a deeper shadow you released or a deeper part of you you're ready to explore. That was a little challenging, a little more than usual, but good, because it builds the strength for the next step. And that part of how you can come at life, I think, brings so much happiness, less suffering and more being.
Absolutely. And a sense of having power.
Yeah.
Power of being empowered to create change in your life. The way of believing that manifesting is just going to happen to me and I'll walk out the door and meet Prince Charming or Princess Charming, whatever it might be, or find a gold bar on the ground. That's not very empowering. It might feel good, but then what do you do with it once you get it?
Right.
When we look at manifestation as coming from self-belief, self-work, personal empowerment, it feels much more real and much more rewarding than something just dropping from the sky. It feels so good when we have worked for something, at least from my perspective.
Yeah. And it feels desirable, right, when you receive it. And you have often a lot more gratitude. Some tools that we come with in this life, as we all know, is we get a mind for free, our body's free, our brain. But then we buy $1,000 TV and we tell the kids, oh, don't touch the TV. Don't put a fingerprint on it, right? We feel so precious because we bought it. So when we come at that stance, we find more gratitude for those things that we were given for free. We find that it's more of a blessing and a gift. We find that when I explore this way of approaching life, it becomes more of a way to be in gratitude, which is more love, which induces a peace that I think we all look for. And a lot of my clients start with, I just want to be happy, or I want to have more happiness. And an instant exercise is starting to stimulate gratitude. And I'll have them right on the first call. I want you to tell me 5 things you're grateful for. And sometimes they're so out of habit for being grateful, they won't even know. Grateful for the oxygen, grateful for the drinking water, grateful for the roof. And that right there is a complete shift in embodying what you bring to life, I think. So,
What a beautiful note to begin to draw our time together to a conclusion, because, again, I wholeheartedly am in accord with you. Research, for our listener, research shows that the power of gratitude to create, talk about manifestation, there's a piece there where research shows us that when we're in a place of gratitude with ourselves, with life, with our partners, there is so much research that shows that that creates well-being,
yeah,
that creates connection. And so, in a roundabout way, we answered the listener's question in many ways, and I'm so appreciative of our time together. Are there
me
any
too.
other pieces that you might want to highlight?
Sure. I would say, just as a concluding note, no matter where you're at in life, anybody listening in, no matter how things are challenging and troubling, I've been there so many times over, is if you can just open the mind to embrace what is possible for me. Where can I go? What tools or support can I ask more of or more about? If you can just stay in that place the best you can, even when there's things going on, or even if life is grand right now, it'll just keep your consciousness open. And what I believe, at least, your soul guiding you, higher part of you guiding you towards how to make it better. Keeping the door open, I think, is everything. Keeping an open mind to allow this space to turn into something better overall. Keep the light, keep the hope.
I absolutely appreciate that again, because so many people come to me without hope, and
Yeah.
they're saying, I'm too old, I'm too young, I'm too in the middle, I'm too stupid, I'm too poor, whatever it is. And we all have those voices at times. I mean, they can pop in. I'm not enough. And that piece that you're offering us, to keep the hope, to keep the faith. And instead of saying, I can't, I shouldn't, I'm too this, I shouldn't, instead, believe I can, I want to, I will. I can, I want to, I will. Keep the hope, keep the light, and keep moving forward, because that's what we're meant to do. Until that day that the higher being, the higher power, the universe, the earth, whatever it is, takes our last breath, we have the power to create change. That's the beauty.
Absolutely.
Oh, Scott, it's been such a pleasure. Where can our listeners find you?
Yeah, and this has just been an amazing conversation. So I appreciate very much, Dr. Carla. So anybody wanting some like intro kind of movement for law of attraction manifestation, right on my YouTube channel, it's Scott Haug Official. Same thing with Instagram and social. So Haug is my last name. And if you're looking for like an intro course, something easy but step by step, we have our Prosperity Magnet course that's right on our school platform. Again, Scott Haug Official. But that'll get you started. Very easy steps moving forward, what to get going on, how do you visualize, how do you get moving with your tools. And those would be 2 good places to start with.
Brilliant, brilliant. Listeners, don't worry. All of that is going to be in the show notes, so you'll be able to find the links. But I'm just going to give you the spelling one more time of Scott's name, Scott, Scott, Haug, Haug. And I'm looking here. It is, what is it? What did I say? I'm not seeing it in my notes here with the official.
Oh, so that it's just the handle at the end of each URL, Scott Haug
Okay.
Official. It's just the overall. But I think the links that you have won't say the official on there. So,
No, that's what confused my brain for a second.
yeah.
Sorry, listeners. It is manifestwithscott.com is also a way to find Scott. So that's an
Yes.
easy one to remember too. Manifestwithscott.com. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, phew. All right. Any final piece, Scott?
I think this was really great. And just moving forward in the light, I think is really great for the whole world. and us included. So I appreciate everyone listening just because you're growth oriented.
Okay, wish I didn't have to say one more thing,
Right.
but you are so right. We forget often that when we take care of the self and help the best self come forward, we are not only helping ourselves, we become a role model for other people, for our kiddos, for our partners, for somebody who sees us on the street shining and doing what we love to do. And in that way, even if you only touch one other person, listener, by living your best life, you have made the world a better place. And I believe this with every fiber of my being. And I'm so glad you do too, Scott. It has been such a privilege.
Yeah. Thank you.
And to my precious listeners, thank you for joining us for another episode of Imperfect Love. It's always a joy to share time with you. And this is Imperfect Love.
Thanks so much for sharing your time with me today. Remember, you have the power to transform your life and love fearlessly, if imperfectly, and it's my privilege to help you along the way. You can find more life-changing content, including my books and other podcast episodes, at drcarlamanley.com. Feel free to submit your own confidential questions through my website. I'll do my very best to include your issue on a future episode. If you found this podcast helpful, please subscribe and leave a review. Until we connect again, this is Dr. Carla Marie Manley wishing you oceans of blessings and love. Please note, this podcast is psychoeducational in nature and is not intended to replace formal mental health support. Please contact your healthcare provider or emergency hotline if you need psychiatric care. And as always, please take good care of your amazing, wonderful self.